All right, let's cut right through all the noise. You see the headlines everywhere about these GLP-1 drugs, Ozempic, Mounjaro, you name it. Today we're going to skip the chaos and give you a clear, science-based look at what's really going on.
This quote, this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The headlines might be promising a miracle, but biology, well, it doesn't really do miracles. It does mechanisms and it does trade-offs. There's always an invoice.
You know, the conversation out there is totally split. It's either a complete lifesaver or an absolute disaster. But today, we're going to ignore the extremes and focus on the one thing that actually matters, the physiology. How does this stuff actually work inside your body?
To really get a handle on how these drugs work, you first have to understand why losing weight and keeping it off can feel like you're literally swimming against a powerful, invisible current.
And here's maybe the most important idea in this entire explainer. Struggling with weight is not a moral failure. It's not about a lack of willpower. It's actually an evolutionary success story that has gone terribly wrong in our modern world. Think about it this way. For 99.9% of human history, the number one threat to our survival wasn't too much food. It was not enough food. Starvation was the enemy. So our bodies became absolute masters at storing energy as fat. The people who survived were the best fat stores. And we are their descendants. The problem? That same biological programming is now working against us in a world of Uber Eats and total abundance. Deep down in the most ancient part of your brain, there's this command center that controls hunger with like military precision. You've got ghrelin, which is the gas pedal. It's the hormone that screams, "I am hungry, you need to eat now." Then you have leptin, which is the brake pedal. It's supposed to say, "Okay, we're full, you can stop." But the problem is, for many people, the brain goes deaf to that leptin signal. It's like the brake line's been cut. It's not a weakness, it's a wiring problem. So if that whole hunger circuit is broken, how in the world do these drugs manage to override it? Well, the story is pretty wild. It doesn't start in some high-tech pharma lab. It starts out in the desert with the venomous lizard. So back in the 1980s, scientists discovered this really cool thing called the incretin effect. Basically, when you eat, your gut releases a hormone called GLP-1 that sends a message up to your brain saying, hey, food's on the way, you can cool it with the hunger signals. It's a brilliant system. But there was one massive problem. Our own body produces an enzyme that acts like a little Pac-Man, and it destroys GLP-1 in just 2 minutes. It's gone. That's just not long enough to turn into a useful medicine. And this is where the Gila monster comes into the picture. A scientist named Dr. John Ng was studying this lizard because it only eats a few huge meals per year. And he found the key in its venom, a molecule that acted just like our GLP-1, but it was resistant to that little Pac-Man enzyme. It was basically wearing a disguise. That molecule from a lizard's venom became the blueprint for this entire class of drugs. So they had this secret from the lizard. But what modern chemistry did next to turn it into the drugs we have today, that's where things get really fascinating. Researchers made 2 incredibly brilliant changes. First, they tweaked one single amino acid on the molecule. This tiny change basically gave it a shield, making it invisible to that enzyme that wants to destroy it. Then, they did something else. They attached a long fatty acid tail. This tail lets the drug literally grab onto and hitch a ride on a massive protein in our blood called albumin. You can think of albumin as a giant cruise ship that just circulates through your body for about a week. And the result of that clever engineering? You take a natural body signal that lasts for a grand total of 2 minutes, and you turn it into a super hormone that lasts for 168 hours, a full week. That is how you get this powerful, sustained appetite suppression that is changing everything. Okay, so we've seen the incredible discovery and the brilliant engineering. Now we have to talk about the part that nobody really explains clearly, the biological cost. Remember the invoice? It's time to look at the bill. And this isn't about fear, it's just physiology. So let's ask the question directly. What really happens when you chemically force a state of always full onto a body that has spent millions of years evolving to cycle between hunger and feeling satisfied? First up is the gut. A huge part of how the drug works is by slowing down how fast your stomach empties. For most people, that just leads to some nausea or bloating. But for some, that slowing can become severe, a condition called gastroparesis or stomach paralysis. And here's a critical safety warning. If you are going in through surgery, you absolutely must tell your anesthesiologist you're taking these drugs because that slowed stomach emptying poses a major risk. Okay, this next trade-off is probably the most underrated of all, muscle loss. When you lose a lot of weight very quickly using any method, you don't just lose fat. You lose metabolically active muscle tissue. Losing muscle is like taking the engine out of your car and replacing it with a smaller one. Your whole metabolism slows down, which makes regaining the weight much, much easier down the line. And that Ozempic face you hear about, that's not some weird side effect. It's just the physics of losing the fat pads in your face really quickly. So what happens when you stop taking the drug? Well, your biology rebounds with a vengeance. Your hunger hormones don't just return to normal, they overshoot, creating this period of intense hyperhunger. Your appetite comes roaring back long before your body's I'm full signals do. That 2022 study found that people regained about 2/3 of their lost weight within a year. And let me be clear, this isn't a failure of willpower. It's chemistry. It's a predictable biological response.
Now, that all sounds pretty discouraging, I know. But here's the good news. That rebound isn't unavoidable. You can actually engineer your way around it. You can build a smart, medically aligned strategy to use these amazing tools safely. So here are 5 non-negotiables. Number 1, you have to eat enough protein. Think of it as insurance for your muscles. 2, you have to strength train. Resistance training sends a powerful signal to your body to hold on to that precious muscle. 3, never stop cold turkey. A slow, gradual taper lets your body's own hormones recalibrate. 4, use fiber. You're trying to transition from the drug making you full to actual food making you full. And 5, monitor your mood. A small number of users report feeling kind of flat or unmotivated, so your emotional health is just as important.
You know, if these drugs have taught us anything, it's that this has always been a biological issue, not a moral one. For so many people, these drugs can be a powerful bridge, a tool that finally gives them the breathing room to build new, healthy habits, while their biology finally stabilizes.
So in the end, the goal isn't to be for or against these drugs. The goal is to be informed. It's about understanding that if you're going to use an incredibly powerful tool like this, you have to pair it with a protocol that honors and respects the complexity of your own body. That's how you get the benefit without having to pay that biological invoice in full. If you got something from this video by Body Blueprint, please subscribe. It helps a ton.